Deborah, how are you?
I am marvelous in my wonderful debeliciousness.
And for everyone watching, Deborah has been my coach. She has been holding my hand through the process of learning how to start your own podcast. Oh my gosh, I've had so many questions. Stormy, how are you, Stormy?
I'm doing unbelievable.
Is that good or bad?
Oh, that's always good. That's always good.
That's the way to cover that up.
Uh-oh. Let's see. He can only see you in the video and no one else.
Can only see me and no one else. Okay, well, that's interesting.
Well, because right now, I believe what you're broadcasting on Zoom is the screen of the PowerPoint.
Okay, so now do you see us all?
We see your face.
Yes.
Lovely face. Yes.
Wait, no.
Yes, it says yes.
Okay, cool. So this is quite the setup here, a little overwhelming in a good way.
And just once you finish off that screen, you can switch it back to just you,
Yeah.
and then it'll bring us all in.
I'll go back and forth.
As
All
we
right.
are doing that.
Are we ready to dive in? I don't want to keep people waiting. 2 views of Darren. Yes. Aren't you lucky? All right. So I'm going to go back to sharing. Boom. And so do not take these technical difficulties on Deborah or Stormy. This is me learning this new system. All right, so we're going to dive right in. So if you are an overzealous grammarian, you may see some typos. Let it go. This is brand new. I've never done this before. And if you're watching this, you may have been thinking about starting your own podcast. Of course, that's why you're here. That's what we're going to help you with. But if you haven't started yet, it's not your fault. All right, so I'm being. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, we had the
Little
microphone.
help there. It's not your fault. So sometimes there's reasons stopping us between actually starting it, which I have been thinking about this for like a couple years until I met you guys. And finally I said, okay, I got to just do this and get out of my own way. So if you've been dreaming or thinking about it, you're not quite sure what to do to start, you can do this. That's what we're here to tell you. You just need the right people to explain to you. And that's what I needed. And that's what I found in Deborah and Stormy.
And Deborah.
And Deborah and
starting
Stormy
already.
and Deborah. So
Right, absolutely.
the bookends. The Deborah bookends. So
That's right.
some people just tell you that you don't have what it takes or you need this or you need that. They are wrong. I think I might have set a record I checked it out in the first day that we came here to the studio and recorded the first version, and the time that it actually showed up on Apple was 1 week, 7 days.
7 days.
From the first recording to actually having it live.
That's pretty incredible.
That's it. Now, for those of you watching, it may take a little longer than that. I've got some background, but the bottom line is it should be inspiring that it's simpler than you think. We truly believe that if you have a message and a story, you're uniquely qualified to help people in the right audience. You've got an audience for you. And we want to see you help people with your passion and your purpose. That's why we're here. And that's why we're here. I bet you have a dream about making an impact and you want I can't even read. I'm just going to, you read it yourself.
You know what? That's
absolutely.
okay because you're excited. See, Darren came into this, and this just goes to show you how this works. I'm just going to jump in for a half a second, Darren.
Please.
And he's excited about this because literally when you're talking about from your first recording, from the time that you decide that you're going to do a podcast to the time that you officially launch, and then you get a message from iTunes within a 7-day period, that's phenomenal. And that's what we're looking to do is with each of you is to take you through those steps. Now, he and I were married at the hips over the weekend, getting him started. But the point is that we got everything done. And this is just an example of his excitement because what we're going to be teaching is exactly what he went through this past week, and he made it happen. And that's Stormy in the background. He keeps talking. He won't shut up. We just like a kid, he can't be quiet. But that's what you're seeing from Darren. He's excited because what we told him could happen has actually happened.
Bam.
Bam. So that's the excitement that you're hearing. Back to you.
Deborah.
You're welcome.
All right. So, and just hang with us. If you got questions, put them in there. We'll keep an eye on the chat section. So let's just take up from where we were. And I don't know why that keeps jumping over in front of me, so I can't even read. All right. So we're here to help potential podcasters in two ways. Number one, to give you hope and through a deeper why as to why you want to do this. Because if you have that why, like I'm passionate, I'm excited, I know I can help people, the more passionate you get about helping people, the deeper your why, the more you're just going to bowl over all of those barriers. And then what do you need to do to get started? So that's our goal of this webinar. Thanks for being here. We'll show you how insights from experienced podcasters are essential to get you started quickly. Without Deborah and Stormy, I would just be a guest on other people's podcasts.
Now you've got your own.
Now I got my own, and I'm excited to tell you guys, too, about some doors that opened up. So why listen to us? Why us? What do we have? And Stormy, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Deborah, because that will be the real story. So Deborah, I want to give you the opportunity to correct Stormy, so that's why I'm introducing him first. So Stormy, tell us about your story as to why you.
Well, why me? Well, one, this isn't, we're in a great studio right now, but the beauty of it is I've made all the mistakes. I'm really good at making mistakes. And I dived into this podcasting thing maybe 2 years ago. Is that about right, Deborah?
Yeah, that's when you started. You started talking about 3 years.
I started talking about 3 years ago. Then 2 years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm going to build this podcast, and we're going to start it. And I bought all the wrong equipment that I had to that I bought, and I had to sell it at a deep discount, and then to get the right equipment. And then guess what? When I did it the second time, part of the equipment was the right equipment. Then I only had to sell half the equipment.
You were coming closer.
I was getting closer and closer, but I learned throughout the process. So one of the things in terms of why me is because of the fact that not only have Deborah and I built a really successful podcast, we're getting incredible guests, and we're being connected to people that we never thought we would have been connected to in a million years, which is awesome. But we found what we believe to be the formula of getting a podcast launched and started. Just like what Darren was sharing a few moments ago, from the time he recorded his first podcast, he was live on Apple iTunes within a week, and now you're live on several other platforms.
And it took 4 days for it to populate. So technically, I had submitted it within 3 days.
Wow.
But it took 4 days to populate.
And it was easy. And that's the other thing. A lot of people...
It was simple.
Absolutely.
Let's not say easy.
Okay, it was simple.
Let's use the word simple.
But here's the scenario. There's a way, when we first started our podcasting, even when we had the right equipment, there was a lot of work after the podcast that we had to do just because we weren't prepping our podcast the right way from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Well, now we've learned techniques.
From our mistakes.
We've learned from our mistakes, absolutely. So now what we're doing, when we record a podcast, we can record a podcast, upload it to iTunes within a matter of minutes, because we figured out a way of doing it with no post-production stuff. This way, it's simple, it's easy, it's not taking up all the time, and now we're encouraged to do it more and more.
Sweet. All right, Deborah, tell us your story.
The real story here.
Story says,
it was simple, it was easy. That's because he wasn't a part of this process with you. Nobody called you for any questions, so of course
on a Sunday. I think I called her 22 times.
It was a lot of times between Saturday afternoon and then Sunday.
Stalker.
Yes. Exactly. But what it is now, for me, my journey was a little different. Stormy had this idea and this vision of creating a podcast, and I heard him talking about it in the office. However, I didn't know what a podcast was. I'm just going to be fully transparent here. I had no idea what a podcast was. I assumed it was something like a radio show, but I really wasn't sure. And then he called and said, "Hey, Deborah, they say in the office that, grudgingly, he said this, that you need to be my podcast host." And it's the truth. If any of you have heard our Powerhouse Experts podcast, without me, Stormy is a bore. So they needed to have me on. But when he called me, I did this little happy dance, and I stopped midstream, and I was like, what is a podcast? Okay, well, back to the happy dance. I'll figure it out. But I had no idea what it was. Since then, I did a deep dive, and there's a lot of training that I did on my own that I wish that there had been a program for me to just connect into, because I would have saved a lot of time. I would have saved a lot of headache. There's a lot of things that would have happened a lot sooner and easier. And then to top it off, we did a rebrand right in the middle when everything was starting to go. We did a rebrand. So we've kind of gotten some bumps on our head, and this little shiny thing, that's a knot on my head that you got. That's a knot from bumping my head against cement and brick walls, trying to figure this out. And we've gotten, it's like Stormy said, we've been very fortunate, and we've worked to make this happen, but to get into the spaces and with the individuals, like Darren LaCroix and so many others that have been on our show, to get them on and connected, and we're just continually building. So now we're kind of paying it forward and helping others. And there's so much room out here. Some people, let me dispel one myth as we're starting.
Please.
So that you're listening, because people keep telling me, well, I keep hearing about these new podcasts coming up. There's something that I put out, it's called Pod Fade. And Pod Fade is more than 60% of the podcasts, because they don't take the time to set up properly, they go into Pod Fade. And that's within that short period of time. Guess what? They're done. They're out because they didn't figure out how to run this like a business.
Right.
So,
and I just want to give a shout out to the listeners really quick. As you're listening to this webinar, if you only see one person on the screen up top, if you click gallery view in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, that will give you the ability of seeing all of us. Just wanted to shoot that out.
Yep.
Because that was their big question.
Absolutely.
Not what equipment to use. How can I see all of them at once? Nice.
They just wanted to see me. Let's keep this real. They wanted to see me.
Right.
And Susan, I saw your question there. What equipment do you recommend? We are going to cover that for sure. All right. So real quick on my story. So let's go to in my video. Okay. So my story. I have been frustrated where when I have a newsletter list I've been building for years is 17,000 subscribers. I have on YouTube 17,000 subscribers. And when I put out new videos and new newsletters, the readership is just not the percentage that I want. It's actually super low. So the reason I'm excited about the podcasting and when I dove in is I'm looking for building my brand. I want to get my content out in front of people where they are. Now, look, there's still people on YouTube. There's still people who read my newsletter for sure, but I want to be in front of the ease of use where listeners are. And I want to get in front of new markets. I love Toastmasters. I'll always be a Toastmaster. It'll always be part of my market, but I want to get in front of the corporate presenters, the pastors, the other professional speakers who aren't part of NSA or what I do. So I saw this as almost like a lead magnet, we would call it in marketing, where here's a way to give away that content. And the people are ready and want to learn more. So I know what I do is when I want to start stand-up, get the book. When I wanted to write a screenplay, get the book. And so now doing podcasting, what do I want to do? I want to learn from the people, get the book. Metaphorically, learn from people who who you trust and are doing it right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So I definitely thought it took me a while to figure out what am I going to call it? What's the brand going to be? But at the same time, I think it's a way to help people give away good content and then generate that attraction to you, like a lead magnet, as we say. Any thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right on the money. It's a great way to build authority, and it's a great way to share your knowledge with others because guess what? Each and every one of us, in my opinion, are a superhero, and we're superheroes in our own right. And the cool thing about podcasting is it allows other people to be attracted to you and your brand and your superpowers where you get to share your message, and the people that will tune into your podcast are the people that really like your messaging and what you have to say and share with the world. And it's been phenomenal.
And it's not going to be for everyone. That's just it. You're not trying to create a podcast that's for everyone. You have to identify that niche market. Who are the individuals that you're talking to?
Right.
And getting in front of those individuals, there's an old saying, you're either one handshake, one deal, or one yes away from everything you want in this world.
Wow.
Woo. And the other idea, too, is when you want traffic coming to your website, I learned this from Cialdini's book on influence, that it's like setting up I forget the actual term he used, but it's setting up like framing it that you get a higher lead or a warm lead, as opposed to a cold lead goes to your website and then wants it or not. And this is your area, Stormy.
Absolutely. Working with warm leads, for those of you that are in sales, I'll speak to you. And guess what? I believe everyone's in sales. But there's a scenario, when it comes to anytime you can build a relationship prior to, you're going to be in a much better situation, because we've all heard the stories, or you've been in a scenario where you've had to do a cold call, meaning that you're reaching out to someone that knows nothing about you, your brand, your messaging. They just know nothing about you. Well, let me just share something with me in regards to my business. And so I'm the founder of a company called Yoco Local. And the cool thing about this podcasting, which I didn't even think about, because originally when I decided to do this, this was going to be just a fun play to see exactly what happens. Well, now what happens when I meet people, they know who I am. They know my personality. And some of these leads or these transactions that I thought that were going to be cold transactions actually turn out to be warm transactions, because they know who I am. They've researched me, and they feel this warm and fuzzy, I would hope, prior to. So there you go. I'll get off my horse there.
All right, so let me jump back into where we left off with the content here. All right, so those were our stories and why listen to us. Again, I'm thrilled that 7 days, that blows me away. But what that is it may take you more than 7 days, but if I can do it quickly with the experience and getting coaching from Deborah, not Stormy, what can you do? So I wanted to break a record so I could show you that it's possible. So if you're trying to start a podcast without experienced podcasters, without getting advice from experienced podcasters, you're just making it harder on yourself or delaying. Some people go to seminars, they get feedback from unqualified people. Well, we want you to go to qualified people, whether it's us or someone else. It's hard and confusing and takes a long time if you're trying to figure it out yourself. So you give presentations, you get feedback, and then people tell them the opposite things. Well, this person says this person says this. What do I do? That's why you want qualified people. So I'm just going to blow through this. 3 big podcasting secrets. That's what we're going to cover here that may be stopping you from getting started. Our goal is we want you to get started. So secret number 1, get clear on your who and why. This is the starting point. Get clear on your who and why. A quick little story. So I was in China last year, and I was in between 2 speeches in 2 different cities. I went to this museum, and I had these 2 handlers who were bringing me along and translating for me, taking care of me. And I got to this exhibit, and I just stopped, and I got locked in, and I was like, what is it? What is it? There's a message here. There's a metaphor. I need to understand this. And they're like, Mr. LaCroix, come on, we have to go, Mr. LaCroix. And I'm like, no. If you look at this picture, you realize what the curators did is they took these broken pots and they put them back together as if they were whole. But they didn't hide the broken pieces. They put in the white plaster. And when I thought about this, I realized this is what you and I do. This is what your podcast does. Your podcast helps people and gives them hope. That white is the plaster. That's the hope. That's the hope that you and I give people with our podcast. And some people need more hope than others. Let's face it. But people are smiling, but there's a reason they're listening. And the reason they look up your podcast, when you get it in front of people, they're going to recommend it to the people who need your help. So some real quick statistics. This blew me away. And Stormy, this is actually, I can give you some credit on this part.
I'll take
Not
it.
the rest of it. That was all Deborah. But podcast revenue is up to surpasses 700 million. Now revenue,
Annually.
Annually. Deborah, maybe you could explain what is podcast revenue.
So your podcast revenue. Before I get into that, real quick, I want to talk about the who and the why that you just mentioned. And if you recall, the first thing that I said is identifying your target audience, knowing who that audience is. Once you do that, it makes the journey so much simpler, so much more simple, because it's no longer you trying to appease to everyone. It's just you appeasing to those specific people. Now, when it comes to the revenue, what we're talking about, there's several different types of revenue. Ad revenue is only one of them. And that's where you're going to get sponsors. And sponsors come in a couple of different ways. One sponsor is the sponsor that you get, and they come in and it's ABC company, and they want to have a spot on your podcast. So somewhere within there at the beginning, the middle, or the end, you're going to give a plug for this company or this product. And it's okay.
Just keep going.
Yeah, so you're going to give a plug for this company or this product. That's ad. So they're going to pay you, and that's based upon per 1,000 views, your CPMs. That's one way to have ad revenue. Another way to have ad revenue, which is really clever, and I'm only going to tell them a couple because they need to come see me. But here's another one. You guys have a podcast? You know, there's this thing called affiliate marketing. And any of you can become an affiliate coming out of the gate. So you take a product or a service, something that you may be using within your business. You become an affiliate for them, and then that becomes one of your ads. So you're able to create income and revenue just from the affiliate product that you're using. You know it works, so you're endorsing it. And now you automatically, coming out of the gate, you don't have to wait to build your podcast. You can come out of the gate creating revenue.
And Debbie just asked Deborah, what CPM?
Oh, cost per milo, I think, and that's
Million.
cost per thousand. It's based upon per thousand. I know you would think it would be million, right?
But it's cost per thousand.
Yeah, it's cost per thousand. So that's for every 1,000 views that you have, it may be paying you $50 or $100. So a lot of times it takes a while to build up to those numbers, but that's only one way of doing it. Some of you may be coaches. You have different products or services that you may have. Here's the thing. When you become a podcaster, doors open. And I don't know if it was Stormy or Darren that said this. Doors open that didn't used to open for you. There are individuals that are ready to have conversations with Stormy. They always wanted to talk to me, but with Stormy, they didn't want to talk to him in the past. So it gives you the ability to build relationships because now they know who you are before they ever meet you. They know who you are, and you're building relationships prior to ever starting that rapport building process.
Right.
So those are just a couple of ways that you start to create income, but there's so many more ways that we're going to cover in the training. But that's 3 ways right out the gate. And if you have a podcast right now, look into becoming an affiliate. And let me just tell you this, before you think about, well, affiliate, you think, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Let me tell you what. Airbnb, they have an affiliate program. Best Buy has an affiliate program. Oh, wow. Just about any product or service that you use, they have an affiliate program. So that's just one way to start out of the gate while you're building.
Yep.
And the other idea too is the fact that I'm starting off before I get those. My whole goal is my podcast sponsors my business.
Right.
So we're trying to drive traffic. In my intro and in my outro, I'm trying to drive traffic to Stage Time University, but now it's more qualified traffic as opposed to, getting the ad revenue. So just letting you know that there's more potential than just, hey, I have a podcast.
Right.
All right,
Yep.
So let's go back to these statistics because I love these. This is what got me jacked, is that the United States quickly becoming a podcast nation. I can't read. According to 2017, nearly 25% of Americans, around 600 million, are listening.
68 million.
68 million, like I
Or
said.
668, same thing.
Deborah, you had some more insight on that.
Well, actually, since then, that number is coming close to doubling. When they're saying 25%, that was back then. It is quickly becoming. And here's one thing that happened just this month. So many people listen to Pandora. Pandora just started their podcast platform.
Wow.
So Pandora is no longer just music. Spotify is no longer just the Pandora's box is open.
Absolutely.
That's right. Pandora's box is open and they are ready for business. So that just gives you an idea of where this is going. We're just starting to scratch the surface. So people always keep, like I said, I'll harp on this because I want you to understand, do not believe the hype when people say it's a saturated market. It's not even close to being saturated. The big boys are jumping in for a reason.
Yeah, and if it's doubling, then it's got momentum.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Jump in front of the wave. You
Yep.
know, Stormy, you even say in the little video promo we put together about the fact that momentum. If you miss the boat,
Absolutely. If you missed the boat on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's funny. There's another social media platform called TikTok. And there were several people in my circle that I recommended for TikTok. I'm like, you absolutely need to be on TikTok. I think this is the perfect platform for you. Well,
TikTok.
And
what is TikTok?
It's funny. It's another social media platform that's growing, but it's kind of interesting because one of the people said, no, I don't think this is for me. I don't think this is for me. And then he saw one of his idols on TikTok and he was like, oh my gosh, I missed it. Well, podcast, let me just kind of tell you, there's huge opportunity for many people to get on board because the amount of listeners or listenership is growing daily, and they're looking for educational content. So if you have a message that's educational where you're teaching somebody something, that's the most popular format of material that's being consumed on podcasts.
And here's the thing is, like you mentioned TikTok. TikTok is this little strange thing to me. Yeah. It's kind of strange, and I'm a little older, but TikTok is it's all these little strange things happening on there. Now, so for some of you guys have comedy things. You guys have these strange skits that you do. You have funny things. Like there is a podcast that I love this, and it's called, and excuse my French, so I hope that there's no kids in the room, but it's called Tech Bitches. And I just love these chicks because they're funny. They've got the worst potty mouths ever, but they're hilarious. But they're doing it, they're providing it valuable information for women based upon the tech industry. And they're truly tech chicks, but for some reason, that's the name that they came up with. And they attract a certain demographic. So just depending upon what it is, it's not just education. Say you're saying, I don't want to do education, I want to do gaming. Gaming podcasts are on point right now. They're phenomenal. So the fun, silly ones, there's a lot of podcasts now that are doing like, what's some of those shows? I don't watch a lot of them. The dead people, the zombie people. What's that called? What's that?
The zombie shows.
Yeah, the zombie shows. There's several podcasts.
The Walking
Dead. That's it. Yes. There's several podcasts about that. There's a podcast about the show Empire. So, I mean, the list can go on and on and on. We can talk for days just about the possibilities based upon your interest. Find something that you're interested in. Find out what the audience wants from that product, from that service, from that show, from whatever it is. Find out what resonates with them and then just drive.
Yep. You'll learn as you go.
Learn as you go. That's it.
Sweet. Okay. Next, that podcast listener remains an affluent, educated consumer. I love that because this means this is our target market. This is more the people that we want as potential customers. Thoughts on that?
I mean, that kind of said it all. This is your, it's like you said, you own it. Here's the difference. So if you think about this in your marketing, you're depending upon several other tools and platforms, Facebooks, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a social media manager. So I've seen accounts get shut down in Facebook. And for things that none of my clients, fortunately, but others that I've worked with, their accounts have gotten shut down. They don't own that. Guess what? You own the content from your podcast. It is yours. You're the boss.
And I love how what you taught me is that we use Libsyn, which distributes it with the RSS feed. So I just have to worry about one place and it sends it out to iTunes, Google Play,
absolutely,
etc.
Yeah, don't get intimidated by all these platforms. Just like Darren said, we use Libsyn. So once we put our podcast on Libsyn, it sends it everywhere it needs to be, from iTunes to Spotify to wherever. Google Play. We recently Stitcher, iHeartRadio. It takes care of everything for you, so you don't have to. It's not an overwhelming process.
Once you start getting it out there, there's others that'll pick it up. Like iHeartRadio is one of those that you have to apply for, and sometimes people have told me that they couldn't get on. We found out I never submitted us to iHeartRadio because I was told we needed to wait. I found out we're on iHeartRadio. So if you start to build your podcast up, they'll go and grab you and start putting you over there.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. This is a stormy one too. Sports news, but they're all surpassed by an unlikely competitor. educational podcasts.
Absolutely. Educational podcast is where it's at. I consume podcasts, and I'm not listening to sporting events. I'm not listening to news. I'm listening to stuff that's designed to improve my education. And the statistics show that that's what other people are listening to too. So if, like I said earlier, it's the educational podcast market that has the greatest opportunity. So if you have the ability of teaching people in bite-sized chunks, so if you have a podcast that you can run that's a 5-minute show or an hour and 5-minute show, it really makes no difference. That's the cool thing about podcasts. And the market they're just clamoring for more education. People want to learn, because here's where they're listening to podcasts. They're listening to it in the car on the way to work. That audience either listen to audio books, or podcasting. And what they've found is that a lot of people who listen to audiobooks are listening to podcasts because they're getting fresher, more relevant information, and they're still learning. The other place where podcasts are consumed in the kitchen while people are cooking, they're making their meal, they're spending their time in the backyard, in the kitchen, at home, listening to podcasts. So if you're listening to this and you think you have some information that people would like to learn, podcasting is by far and away the best platform, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's why would you not? This is
Right.
great. Why would you not at least get started? Okay. So number one, massive. You must have direction and connection. And this is a mistake on the slide. So we're going to move along to number 2. All right. So like I said, hey, for those of you who are overzealous grammarians, I appreciate it. Forgive us. I will fix it as we go. I've been we put this together a few days ago. Yeah. We're like, okay, you know what? We need to do this. And so we threw it together. Okay, so secret number 2, you don't need to be technically savvy. Here we are talking about technical stuff. And I appreciate your question, Diana. It's Libsyn, Libsyn. And Deborah, maybe you could explain that, what that means. What's Libsyn?
Libsyn is your hosting company. So just like with your videos, you have a video and you put it onto YouTube. YouTube is hosting that video. So when you're doing a podcast, you're going to have to host it somewhere. Facebook, YouTube, any of those. They're not going to take your audio unless you have something to feed it over. It's fed over to the different platforms through what's called an RSS feed. So that's what Libsyn is. Libsyn is just one of the many that are out there. There's several out there to use, but Libsyn is just one. That's the one that we use. The other one there's a free one out there. What's it? Anchor. Yes. Anchor, we have not done the research. I am in the process of researching them now, so I cannot give a recommendation. But
we'll know soon enough.
Exactly.
But that's a perfect example. We're an affiliate for Libsyn.
Yeah, and I remember when you got me started, Deborah, even though people think I'm technically savvy, I am not. I usually go to Dawson, figure out how to do this and show me. But
the kids.
What you gave me, Deborah, was how to get started on Libsyn video. Mm-hmm. And so I literally watched the video, I hit pause, and then I went and did it. And then I watched more of the video, I hit pause, and then I went and did it. And so, yes, I still had a few questions, but at the same time, the videos are out there. If you need an answer, go to YouTube.
That's right.
Type it in, go to YouTube.
That's it. What we're doing is we're here to just give you some basic information. If you want to dig deeper, then that's what our training is for, that we're going to talk about soon. But the reality is that there's a lot of resources out there. And Stormy always likes to say, you can start with absolutely nothing. I disagree with that, but you can start with very little. You can start with on a shoestring budget, and you can get your podcast out there. And like I said, it just takes a little more time for us. I did a lot of that work, so Stormy wasn't worried about how long it took to learn it. But I had to do a lot of deep dives, and I learned it, and I'm happy that I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it made my process a lot easier when I was working with you in just knowing that I could go to you for the answers, and then I could continue and move forward. So that was a beautiful thing. When we get to techie, like you see that the setup we have, we're here at Local Yoko Studios in Las Vegas. You don't need this. What I was talking to Craig and Ed, my fellow world champion buddies this morning, we were talking about that. And one of them wasn't really clear what is a podcast. And podcast, what is it from our standpoint, from a podcaster? Like, I'm very experienced creating CDs and DVDs. Like, I spent a lot of time on GarageBand, and I said my explanation is, look, it's just you have your own show. Basically, it's a single CD. Each show is a single CD
I
with
like
a single
that.
topic. Don't overcomplicate it. And now it's a single MP3. And literally, it's an MP3 that you upload to Libsyn, and then you give it a description. You do the ID tag, ID3 tag if you want, and that takes the information and disseminates it to all the other podcasting platforms. So just look at what's a podcast. It's just an audio MP3. That's it. It's just given a fancy name as to, and then it's where you find it to listen to it.
That's true.
Don't
Yes.
overcomplicate.
Oh, wait, so I can
this.
call myself a recording artist now.
Well,
Like
I don't know
you
if
haven't
artist,
already.
recording. I don't know
Yeah.
if artist is the
Yeah.
right descriptor.
Absolutely.
Like he hasn't already. Come
Right.
on. Exactly.
And what's for somebody who's starting on a shoestring? I'll ask both of you. For someone starting on a shoestring, and this is like, wow, I need all that. What would you recommend? That maybe like $100 microphone. What would you recommend?
Yeah. And that's, if you're starting on a shoestring budget, the most important thing that you need to invest in is just a high quality microphone. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we can make, so Deborah mentioned the other platform, Anchor. Anchor's designed to give you a podcast studio in your cell phone. So if you have a mobile phone, you can buy a good microphone. I would not trust the microphone in your, phone, but I would get a lapel mic that connects to your phone. So if it's an iPhone or an Android, invest there, and you have what you need to start your own podcast.
And that's about, that's $20 to $30.
$20 to $30. And if you're using a computer, let's say if you're like, okay, I'm not going to go the cell phone route, I want to take it the next step up. Well, now what happens is you can get a really good USB microphone for about $30 to $100. That's the scenario there. So there's two options that you can get started for less than $100 bill.
And you could literally, if you're doing it on your laptop, which that's where my goal is to do it on my laptop.
Right.
I can record literally right into either on Zoom.
Absolutely.
Like we are doing now. There's also another one called Squadcast, which I'm still learning. So it's hard to recommend something. So it's a way to interview people remotely, but it's designed more for podcasters. And then just literally record it right into GarageBand for the Apple people and right into Audacity or Adobe Audition.
Correct.
For people who are PC users.
And Audacity is the one that I use for edits and things. Stormy says we don't do any edits. We do edits. I do edits on this show. Now, I could very well put them up without the edits, but we've gotten it down to, in the beginning, it was like no way possible. But now we've gotten it down to the science to where we could. But there are certain things that I like to do and to make sure that it's a more crisp sound. So I do it, but I don't have to. And Audacity is a free one that you could actually use to record and edit all in one.
Yep. GarageBand is free if you have Apple.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly. If you have Apple, but Audacity can be used on Macs or PCs.
So as it stands right now, folks, you're
the dark
looking
side
at
or the light side.
Exactly. You're looking at an investment of a microphone to get started.
Yeah. And then in terms of sounding more professional, I literally went on Fiverr and went through all the different people who created openings and closing recordings. And for $80, $40 for my intro, $40 for my outro, I wrote the script. I found the person that I thought was best. I sent it to him. And within 24 hours, I had it's a little cheesy, but I kind of like the cheese factor. I can play it.
Yeah.
Right?
As a matter of fact, let's play it, Darren, because I think you have. So what'd you pay? $40 for this?
$40 for this.
So you guys listen to this. Tell us what you think.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
Thank
$40?
for that
Are you
idea.
kidding me?
$40.
In $40.
$40. So on Fiverr, Fiverr.com, put in podcast, intro, outro. There's one guy, the guy that I used, if you check it out, he's got a big cigar in his mouth, and it's just like, that's the dude I want.
And
right
what
there.
we'll do is we'll get his
awesome.
information and we'll put it on Facebook when we repost this video. So we'll put his link so that people can contact him directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I did. You heard Mark's voice and my voice. I called up Mark on the phone. I said, Mark, here's what I want you to say. He recorded the MP3, gave it to me. I recorded in my little handheld MP3 recorder that I use when I record myself live, stage time. And then I sent it to him when I ordered it for the $40, and he put those in there. He did the sound levels. He did all of that for $40 one time. And then the outro was another $40. I really like the outro. And then when I listened to it, I was like, ooh, I missed the story brand thing to plug my stage time. So I then had to pay for it twice. But either way, done. Love it.
So let me ask the audience in the comment section, do you guys want to hear his outro? If you do, type in yes. If I see a few yeses in here, then I'll force him to play his. Ooh, look at that. They're coming up here.
Do not be
They
afraid.
want to hear the outro, Darren. So
yeah,
this was another $40.
Yeah, so this was another $40. But keep in mind, so when I mentioned story brand, what I love about the story brand, building your story brand, it's a great book by Donald Miller. Highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
And it's about selling yourself through stories. So listen for the mini story. So, and for all of you, and for those of you, Albert and Debbie, who are coming to our event, and anybody else there, Gina, Maureen is coming as well. So this is, listen for this. So what it says, and this is one of the things we're going to teach at the event, is who is the customer? So my customer is the experienced speaker or presenter. What is the problem? What is the plan? And the plan that I talk about is a proven process or a proven path and qualified feedback. And then what's the outcome they want? To be the presenter everyone's talking about. So listen for that in here. Okay. Here we go.
Make sure you subscribe to our show.
Remember to subscribe, because if you miss a week, you miss a lot.
If you like this episode, please leave us a review. If you want to get more from Mark and Darren, check out Stage Time University, where they provide experienced presenters a proven path and world-class feedback to become the speaker everyone is talking about. Go to stagetimeuniversity.com. Join us next week. If you're going to take the time to prepare a presentation, make it unforgettable.
That was probably the best $80 I ever spent.
Absolutely. That was a killer $80.
But I also, I want to put this in there,
Please.
playing devil's advocate. If you don't know how to do that, just start. Because there are people that, you know, Stormy's business, Stormy's business partner is probably, he's the brains of this organization. He really is. He's the better looking one. He's the smarter one, all that. And one of his intros is just him talking. That's one of his intros, and it's phenomenal. And he says the same thing. So you need to script it out to figure out what you're going to say. Some people have a little music in there. Like when Darren first sent over the first draft of the intro, I was like, you got way too much music here. Way too much wasted time before people are getting into the content. Before, at least in your content may be funny, it may be serious, it may be silly. But it doesn't matter. But no one gets on a podcast to hear music. That's what they go to the music station for. So have some music in there, but just kind of know that this is a process in the making. This is this is a journey.
Yeah, you got to get version 1.0 to get to 2.0.
That's it.
And you make sure you're using royalty-free music. Don't try and just grab your favorite song and use it as an underbed.
You'll get in trouble.
And I took Deborah's advice. I took the intro that he gave me, which has a long music bled, and I just went into GarageBand and I just faded it out. So that way I don't have to do that every single time. So this is the guy. He says, your imagining guy. That's the gentleman that did that podcast intro. But I would say listen to the other ones. Here's what I also did of his that was helpful. I listened to all of them and I took notes. What did I like? We want to remind people always to subscribe, because now they're not just listening once. they're going to get a message every time you come out with a new one. That's the key to staying top of mind.
Right.
The subscription. I learned that from you. I actually learned one thing from Stormy, by the way.
And actually, that's the wrong message.
Oh,
It really is, because think about it. A lot of people are listening to you in their car on their commute.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in a place to subscribe.
it's push of a button.
No, but they're not. And this is proven. This has actually been proven that they're not doing that. So a better use of that intel, so put the subscribe in there, but a better use of that intel is to make sure that you put a call to action to a product, to a service, to a download.
They can't do that while they're driving.
They can't do that while they're driving either.
And that's why you want to make it. But that's why you want to make it something that's simple, like yourbrandyourpodcast.com. They can remember that when they get someplace.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that's not something that I came up with. We're talking about the statistically proven that individuals are not taking that action for some reason. What you want to do is get them over to your page, to your website, get them over to something that you, again, own. And that's how you'll get them on the list to tell them to subscribe. More of them are subscribing after you get them to the list than they are just from the podcast.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm doing both. So we ask for subscription up front, and then we tell them where to go for Stage Time University on the back end. So
I'm not saying
Yeah.
not to ask them for the subscription. You still want to mention it during the show, at the end of the show, but use that time at the end to focus on something that's going to be a download, something that you can get their personal information.
Cool.
It's a value.
So any more on the secret number 2 before we move on to secret number 3?
Nope. Let's roll on.
Let's roll.
All right. So going now to secret number 3. So secret number 2, you don't need to be technically savvy. So you don't need to be technically savvy to have your own podcast. You got to be able to use YouTube as your answer key. And, would love to have you join us for the training so we can get you so much farther down the line in just 2 days.
Correct.
And you still may have some questions, but we're going to answer most of them live. Secret number 3, creating quality content is easier than you think.
Yep.
This is a big one because some people I know, they're intimidated because, I don't know. Well, number 1, let me say the world does not need another podcast. The world needs another helpful, content-rich, quality podcast that helps people. That's what the world needs.
Absolutely. And here's the cool thing about it. I've spoken to people and they're like, ooh, if I'm going to do a podcast, I got to sit down and write out a script and, just read the script to people. That's not what a podcast is about. A podcast is really designed to be conversational. When we do our podcast, we're just having a conversation with people. If you have your podcast and you're the subject matter expert, guess what you're doing? You're just having a conversation with the people that are listening to you. So if you know the information and if you're truly a subject matter expert, it really doesn't require that much prep, especially if you know who your audience is, because you know what your audience wants, their pain points, their struggles, their issues, and you're just giving them the information that they need to make their life a little bit easier.
But I would say too, with I would highly recommend at least having an outline with questions. So you can always, if you get stuck, you can refer back to that. So
Correct.
Even when I was working with Mark, I still had my outline next to me so that I was never at a loss, or there was not this. Now I could delete or cut out that uncomfortable silence, but it still keeps you going. And then you want to be able to have that idea, or if they're, I could look over at my notes. So I would still say, number 1, do your research with the people you're going to interview and ask better questions than anybody else who's ever interviewed them. But you want to keep that flow. And so, for example, with Unforgettable Presentations, our podcast, I always wanted to ask each person, what was the most unforgettable presentation they saw before we talk about theirs? And then why was it unforgettable? So we're still getting that content in there. And then number 2, I always wanted to ask everyone if they ever bombed, because I know people listening to my podcast are newer, so they need that encouragement. They need to know that these experts bomb too, that it's okay. And that's part of the hope and the encouragement I'm trying to get in there. And then number 2, when I first started as a speaker, I had no credibility. So what I did when I wrote Laugh and Get Rich, I wasn't funny and I wasn't rich. So I interviewed people who were. and use them. I was the person who gathered the content, and over time, I was able to use their stories. And that's what gave me credibility, is because I was the one who gathered the information. Deborah?
Now, we've talked primarily about interview-based podcasts, but there is another type that a lot of individuals choose to do, and that's called topic-based. And that's where your research is really important, because it may just be you talking to your microphone or doing a video, whatever it is. So if it's a topic-based, then you want to do your research, find out things that are trending based upon the industry that you're in. What is it? Answer.com? Is that what that thing is called? Answer.com? Where it'll give you, there's a thing, it's called Answer.com.
Or Ask the Public?
Ask the Public is another one. Answer.com and Quora. Those are all resources that you can use to find out what types of things are trending. Say that you're doing a women's podcast and you want to talk about things that are trending for women. You want to talk about families. You want to talk about, relationships. You want to talk about women making money or falling short or whatever it is. There's a resource that you can go and find out the things that are trending. Take those things, and those are the things that you make your weekly podcast about, because now you're relevant for that particular time.
Right.
If it's politics, okay, well, that's a little sketchy. Just beware that hopefully you don't have another brand, because politics, that's one that I will tell you, politics can very well affect other brands.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing a political podcast, be careful so that you don't step on toes.
Yeah, but if you step on toes, you're going to get more engagement.
Yeah,
You'll get more
absolutely.
engagement, but it may affect your primary business.
So
That's the reason.
Buyer be warned.
Exactly.
There
But
it is.
Exactly. So you just want to be careful with that. And like Darren said, create that list. What are the questions? And you only need a couple of questions. You may have a 10, 15-minute Barbara Corcoran, I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
Yes,
But
she's from Shark Tank.
Yes, from Shark Tank. She has a podcast, and some of her episodes are 10 minutes. Some of them are 20 minutes. She does topic based. So for her, she's just giving empowerment and real estate, different things like that, based upon her business and her personal life. And
That's a great
sometimes
point.
it's just 10 to 20 minutes. It does not. Ours is an hour. But if you look at one of the top podcasts, I think it's Seth Rogen. He does sometimes 2 and 3 hour podcasts. So it doesn't matter. Find out what works for you and for your audience specifically.
And Deborah, Sharon Thompson is asking, what's the website or source of what's trending?
I like to dive into that for just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because what happens is it all depends on your audience. There isn't, we can say, Sharon, go to Google, or go to a news site. It all depends on your
industry.
persona, your industry. And then what you can do is, once you have identified who you want to speak to in regards to the audience, you can find industry online publications that speak to people within that industry. And then you can expand upon any of those topics. Now, what Deborah was talking about when it comes to Quora or Answer the Public or Answer.com, those are sites that once you've identified your industry and who you're speaking to, you can go to those places, because those are essentially forums. Or let me back up. Quora and Answer.com are more of aggregated content or forums where people can put in questions. So now what you can do is, once you've identified who your industry is and who your ideal persona is, you can go where they're hanging out, where they're asking questions, and you can answer those questions on your podcast. Because guess what? If one person's asking and they're typing it online, typically that's because they couldn't find an answer anywhere they were searching online. So they're looking for your help. And then not only are you helping that person, but you're helping others who are looking for the same answers. I hope that answered the question for you, Sharon.
It's the question is Quora.
Q-U. I think it's Q-U-O-R-A. Quora.
Quora. Cool. I hope that answers your question. So again, we're on secret number 3. Any more on that one?
No, just to understand that some of the topics that you pick, they may be you just killing it out of the gate. Others that you think may be like, this is awesome, this is a home run. It may not. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal. Just keep driving. Whatever you have to do, avoid the pitfalls of pod fade. That's all that it is. Figure out what it is. And And one of the things that we have, I don't know if we're going to get to that on this or not, but I do want to put this out there. Say, for example, if you know that you can't consistently go week after week after week, don't do an episode-based show. Do a series. The series is you do so many episodes and then you're done for a period of time. Then you wait, you go to the next season, or it's not series, season. So you go to the next season. So it's just like a television show.
Right.
They're not filming all year round. They film, they get everything up, and then there's a down period while it's running, sometimes some reruns, and then they start up again. So if you know that you may have some challenges, look at doing a season-based show versus episodes.
And here, just on this secret number 3, think about what would the world miss if you were not in it. And if all of us, like I said, I believe everyone has superhero powers. We have our own skill sets. And there are people in your life, they'll tell you what your podcast needs to be about, because
that's a great point.
Exactly. What would they miss if you weren't around? If you got moved to some deserted island and you're no longer around, what would they miss most about you? Those
Nothing.
insights. Yeah, probably me.
I would
nothing.
think about you. That's a setup for
That was a
Deborah
setup.
right there.
But that's a way to kind of give you an idea of some of the quality content that you can make, because it's not about listenership. It's not about viewership. It's about the experience that you're able to bring to the table. And if you think about the experience first and you think about the quality of the content first, don't worry about the listenership, the downloads, and the viewership. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have a lot of speakers and experts and emerging experts on the webinar right now. And what I would say to them is go search your topic. Like, what is it that you're an expert on or want to be an expert on? Go see what else is out there.
Right.
And then see the different take that you can have. Like, there's a lot about presentations and public speaking skills, but I was like, okay, ours is going to niche in on unforgettable presentations. Like, what's going to up whatever is out there, not just public speaking, but like if I was scanning through, I want to listen to people talking about unforgettable presentations, not, public speaking 101. So research your topic, see what else is out there, and create a list, create a spreadsheet or something.
And can I just dive in, kind of give a plug for our podcast because we followed that exact formula. So Deborah and I have a podcast and it's called Powerhouse Experts. So make sure you go listen to Powerhouse Experts. But
subscribe,
rate, review, all that good stuff. But here's the route that we went, because Darren brings up a very, very valid point. We wanted to have a podcast where we're bringing on powerhouse experts to speak.
It's a business podcast.
It's a business podcast. Darren's been a guest on our show. We've had other world champion speakers on the show. And we've had powerhouses that are experts in their respective industries, right? But we just didn't want to have another show to where someone's sharing their information. So a decision that we made was, while that expert is sharing their advice, Deborah and I are just talking all sorts of smack to one another. They'll say something, and if I can use that as a club against her, I'll use it. If she can use it as a club against me, she'll use it. So our thought process was, let's make this hour-long podcast where people can laugh, they can learn, they can be inspired, and they can laugh, and they can like me more than they like Deborah. That was the goal of the show.
But it's also based upon our true personality.
Our true personalities, exactly.
Right.
We didn't change it.
The idea came about because some of the people in the office was like, you guys have to take that you do in the office, to the show.
Podcast,
right. It wasn't the show that brought that. This is how we relate normally.
Yep.
And I will say too, based on, I have to tell you, you're inspiring, the two of you. That's what gave me the idea of doing it with Mark Brown, because I could have done my own, but the chemistry, I just felt it's so much more interesting when we are talking about something. The going back and forth just makes it more engaging and more intriguing. And then what I also realized is it took some pressure off of me. So maybe there's somebody you want to team up with to do your podcast, so it's not just you. That might take some pressure off. Just another thought or idea.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely, if you have any fear coming into play at all, a great way to overcome that fear is just by doing it with someone else.
And even if it's what you do to get started, a year from now, they might be bored with it, but either way, or maybe you're bored with it, but either way, then you're going to know. Then you're going to have so much more experience. So then maybe you can choose a better partner.
That's right.
I'm not even telling you.
I hear you. I see you. I get what you're saying there, Darren. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, we'll talk.
But this is just like so important. Like and for those of you watching this webinar or online live with us, I'm psyched that you're still with us. There's 42 people still online with us, and we're at like the hour mark. But if you're busy or this doesn't resonate with you, jump off. That's fine. We're here for the serious people who want to know more. And I've never really seen, I don't know that there's too many webinars out there about how to literally start one. So I'm psyched you're here. And as you can tell, we're all passionate about it, and we want to help you reach your market and get in front of those listeners to build your brand.
Absolutely. Yes. That's what it's all about.
Stormy's typing, so we'll let him type.
Yeah, so I'm done typing now. There it is.
Thanks for taking care of the people online. So creating quality content is simpler than you think. Like bringing on other experts is one way to do that. Doing some research and keeping it intriguing. I know Maureen Zappala is on this, and her subject is the imposter syndrome. Well, one idea is if she wanted to have a podcast about that, she could go and see what other people are talking about, do a little research, and then bring her take to that from her experience as a former NASA rocket engineer.
Right.
And the thing about that, for example, here's a perfect example. Is her name Maureen?
Maureen.
A perfect example for you is anybody who has achieved any level of success, they have faced the imposter syndrome. So your
How would you know
podcast, how would I know that? Because I've achieved. So I'm a big baller shot caller. I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't mean to take you off track.
Yeah, that's right. You always do that. So anyone who has achieved any level of success, they understand that imposter syndrome. Now, some of them may not be willing to admit it, Stormy, but they have all dealt with that. So one area of your show may be to interview some of these individuals and them to share their story of how they got past that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. There you
And
go.
what Mark and I are choosing to do to keep mixing it up is we're going to bring a piece of content on one episode, and then another episode we're going to interview somebody else to dive in. So it's not just each episode's another piece of content on how to, create an unforgettable presentation, but then we're bringing in, and this is what I wanted to mention earlier, that even though, I've accomplished something and have some credibility, what the podcast has done that I've never been able to do without the podcast is opening the doors. That this is what I wanted to tell you. I hadn't told you yet. Gia, do you remember Gia Jiang?
Yes,
The
yes,
rejection
absolutely.
guy.
Absolutely.
So Mark and I saw him at Toastmasters, walked up to him, waited in line with everybody else at the very end, walked up to him and asked him if he would be a guest on our podcast.
Wow.
And he agreed. And Phil Hansen, the artist,
You got him on the show too?
he agreed as well.
That's
And
incredible.
that's opening doors
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely,
would
yes.
never have been opened otherwise.
Because the reason for that is it's what's in it for them.
Hmm.
We're giving them something in exchange for this relationship starting out of the gate. And that's what does not normally happen. You get it to these networkers and these mixers, and everybody is exchanging cards, and no one wants to give you business. They just want to take the business. So a podcast is the best and the easiest way to be reciprocal.
So let me just share this. I'm going to dive in there because that's awesome that you had Hanson and Gia Jing. That's incredible. So let me tell you what podcasts also do. So last week I was in Toronto for a week, right? Well, one of the reasons I was in Toronto for a week was, and by the way, did I mention it was all expenses paid, airfare, and my hotel accommodations, and the $1,500 ticket to the event.
There's a little ego.
There's a little ego there, but
Always
the
ego.
podcast had a big portion of it because the event organizer brought me in to interview many of the speakers for this particular event. So I got to interview some incredible people. And now, like you said, I interviewed them and I asked, I would love to have you on my podcast.
ask.
And guess what they said? Yes.
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 I think we've only had one person tell us no. And guess what? You can ask anyone. And the person who said us no, they didn't say no. They just said, right now is not a good time. I'm just busy with other projects, but please reach back out to me in the future and then we'll do it. But they say yes. It's incredible.
Yeah, and think about it from their standpoint. You're going to put them in front of an audience where they can tell their story and promote their business. That's why we're doing it. So that's why I just got an email that we went to number 907 podcast out of however many millions there are out there. But it's because I had the list already.
Right.
Right.
And this is building your list.
Wait a second here. You've had your podcast for a week. and you're already in the top 1,000 podcasts?
Yes.
Wow. There you go. He can do it. Anybody can do
But
it.
it's because I've asked people. Ooh. I've asked people.
Wow.
Laura, I know how you feel. I asked people to rate and subscribe. I
Right.
asked people who are friends of ours, people at the Toastmasters convention, I need a favor of you. Would you please rate and subscribe? And so many people did. So it's hard enough to get people to do that.
Absolutely.
But friends will do that for you. Another real inspiring thing. When I first got started in speaking, the COO of Bose Corporation, his name was Sherwin Greenblatt. He was Dr. Bose's first employee.
Really?
And
Wow.
he was the COO of the Bose Corporation when I worked there. Now, I was a wannabe speaker. I still had a day job as a telemarketer at Bose.
Okay.
But he had this great quote that I had up over my desk about humor and how he believed that if we're going to work and we should make it fun. If we're going to spend our time at work, I don't remember it. It's in my book. But anyway, so I asked him if I could interview him for my book. And he said, yes. So here I am, I don't know if they had 10,000 employees. The reason I got to spend time with him is, look, he's, very wealthy. I can't give him that. But what I could give him is the ego boost of getting in my book. So it opened doors. And I'm telling you, this is how you can use a podcast to open doors that would not be opened otherwise. When emerging speakers ask me about being interviewed, I used to say yes to all of them on their podcast, but now I want to go. So this is another lesson. I want to go and look at the podcast and see if it looks like a quality podcast that has a lot of listeners. I'm not going to spend my time if somebody doesn't show me that they have quality in their podcast. I'm not going to waste my time. But if they do, absolutely guaranteed.
That's a great point. As far as doing an exchange of followers, we don't do an exchange of followers per se, but there is a way to do that that's effective. There is a way to do that within communities. So I did notice that you put that in there. And who was it to put that in there?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, yeah. So it's one of those things that there is an effective way to do it, so that you actually get bona fide followers.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you want to just
you want the right people.
You don't want to just exchange. I'll be a friend if you be a friend. I'll follow you if you follow me. You need to do that by your decision to make a quality podcast.
Correct.
Then people are going to want to be on it. They're going to want to tell their friends, and it's driven by quality.
And I want to share this is that when we started off, one of the things is we got a lot of flack here in the office because Stormy built it was in our other office, and Stormy built a little podcast room. We came back in on Monday, and he had spent all this time and money
the whole weekend
turning this closet into a podcast. It was pretty sweet. So Daryl kept saying, which is Daryl, there's Darren who's with us today, and Daryl is Stormy's business partner with Yoka Local. He kept just writing us about, so when are you going to launch? When are you going to launch? When are you going to launch? We kept putting it off. Didn't have the appropriate help that we wanted. And it is a little, scary launching into something that you really don't understand. And in addition to that, I want to share this because I think it's relevant. Darren, you came and we worked together and you got launched something that I did not have. Now, we were launching a podcast and Stormy had all these other things going on. He has his business. I own a business. And at the time, had a lot of medical issues, There's been times that we've had to go dark because of those issues. Well, I didn't understand the way to really build the podcast. Had I fully understood it, there's so many things that we would have done differently. Despite all of that, we still have managed to build a podcast that's highly recognized and attracts high-level individuals. So just want to say that just because there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of excuses that we come up with, but understand, despite it all, you can still build it. And even if you build it slowly, if you build slow or fast, it doesn't matter. You're still building. And you're going to connect with individuals that have no idea of who you were before they found you on that podcast.
And Cecile, she's in Switzerland, and she's saying it's super late here in Zurich. So I want to honor everybody's time and kind of wrap this up as to. But there was one question Stormy, that came in about soundproofing.
Oh, I'm putting it right there. I was typing it up.
Well, if you look over Stormy's shoulder, you'll see that the blue and gray are part of the soundproofing in here. I also saw, I don't know if you know those little ones that you can buy that you put in front of you.
Yep.
That you can kind of close up and put away.
And let me tell you the Homegirls Network. Here's the poor man's way of soundproofing. When you're starting off, get a little tiny desk, one of those little small ones, put it in your closet with all of your clothes around you, and record in your closet.
Yes, your closet is an unbelievable sound studio.
Be a closet podcaster.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So your closet, for those of you, excuse me, if you have the ability to get all of this wonderful stuff, that's great. But if you don't, go into that closet.
Closet works extremely well.
Yes.
Yeah, just be real careful. A lesson learned when I was creating my audio CDs, which was basically like a podcast on CD. I did it on my kitchen table, and which is a reflective surface. Don't do it in your kitchen.
No.
The other reason is I did it in my kitchen, and you tune out those natural sounds. So halfway through the interview, the refrigerator kicked on,
right?
And then it kicked out. And I didn't notice it until I went back to edit. I was like, oh crap.
Right. And most of it, you don't, you don't have most of those sounds in the closet. So it's a great place to do it, and it's free.
Yeah, and if you do it in a bedroom or something, close the curtains. You want to get rid of the reflective surfaces as much as possible.
And sometimes the bedrooms are too large. So you still may get that echoey sound in there, or definitely not in the bathroom. But like I said, someplace that you have close quarters and you have something to reflect
absorb
on.
everything.
Yeah, absorb it.
All right, so creating quality content is simpler than you think, whether it's research or interviews, but just get started. Get started so then you can improve it. So I look at this, if you're going to start a podcast, this is what I call the math to mastery. Effort times direction plus correction equals mastery. So you've got to get started. You've got to be willing to put in that effort. Then you've got to get the direction. And that's what we hope this webinar was the beginning of. We would love you to join us for our virtual or live 2-day event that we have coming up in Vegas. Please, if you want some more direction. And then correction, you've got to make some corrections along the way. So let us ask you a couple of questions. Honestly, if there are two kinds of future podcasters out there, those who choose to get started and those who keep thinking about it. Like, you got to make the choice. It didn't happen. My podcast didn't happen until I said, okay, I got to do this. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, like we've covered a lot, it's like a drink with a fire hose. We get that, but we tried to, honor your time, do as much as we could on this one webinar. But think about this. Like, this is actually the actual statue in Paris. Think about this. You can't fake it. Like, this is my buddy Manley, who he has a long ponytail, threw it up. Like, you can't fake it. Like, don't try to. Even if you neaten it up, it's still gonna. All right, we got Deborah to laugh. That's a beautiful. I've never seen her laugh that hard. That's a beautiful thing. So even if you neaten it up or tighten it up, like, look, you just got to make the decision and get started. Our goal is to keep our audience engaged. This came from one of my customers. To be able to keep a cat intrigued with a video, like, that's our goal. But you got to start in order to get there. So we've tried to cover as much as we can in the allotted time. If you're interested in learning more, I put together a special offer for you to join the three of us for our event. So may we share that? So let's see online, if you could type in a yes, if we could share a special offer, we would love to do that, but want to do it with your permission. Yes, please share. Yes, thank you. All right, so this is our event coming up in Las Vegas. You can join us live, virtual, or you can even get the recordings. And this is designed to help you build your brand with your own podcast. We've touched on a lot of this, but honestly, there's a lot more that we would have loved to cover, but you just can't physically do it in an hour and a half. So if you go to yourbrandyourpodcast.com, go to this website, yourbrandyourpodcast.com, and you get 50% off. So just because you stuck around to the end of the webinar here, use the code MASTER50, all caps, and you get 50% off of this event. You can join us live, virtual, or I know online here we have both Albert and Debbie, who are VIPs, which means they're going to be guests on our podcast that you guys are going to do. We got to decide whether we're going to bus everybody over here to the studio or if we're going to bring the equipment there to the hotel. But either way, Albert and Debbie. So if you want to be a VIP, you can be literally interviewed on that podcast.
Right.
But go to yourbrandyourpodcast.com and use the code. Stormy, if you could type in the URL and the code, all caps, Master50, Master50, you get 50% off. Dana Morgan Barnes, 12th and 13th. Sorry if did I have a typo on that? Is there a typo?
Yes, you did. 13th and 13th.
13th and 13th. That's comedy. That's where you're setting you up.
Yeah, that's it.
Like I said, we put this together as quick as we can, but get 50% off, Master50. So Deborah, what else are they going to get if they join us at this event?
Well, I think the main thing is the step-by-step. We're going to basically take you by the hand and take you step-by-step through the processes. One of the phenomenal things that we're going to do, and Stormy doesn't do much good, but this is one of his that he does really well, and that's the world's greatest persona?
World's best buyer persona.
World's best buyer persona. That will help to identify and to clarify so much about your podcast and this audience that you're looking for that will help you to go a lot quicker than you would just trying to figure it out along the way. So that's one of the things. The other thing is us taking you step by step. A lot of what happened with Darren was I made myself available last weekend to say, okay, we have to get this done before you're leaving for this event. So I made myself available, and as he was doing certain things, I'm sending him over information. Well, what happened is Darren and I documented this entire process. A lot of the stuff I had already documented, but going through it again with him, I documented it again. And because I'm not really, I'm a vain person, I'll go ahead and say this, damn, I'm good. So we will take you through those steps so that when you walk out of there, you have the basic platform set to launch your podcast after that 2 days. Now, understand this. We're working over those 2 days.
Right.
We have a lot of fun. We play hard, but we work even harder. So those 2 days will be full of work and homework.
Yeah, and I was documenting too as we went. So between the two of us, Stormy didn't do a thing. Between the two of us, we've documented the process. So even like my intro and outro, I created a template to give you to be able to put together yours quickly. So you're going to get so much from us because I just went through the process. Deborah helped me through the process, and Stormy was not involved in the process.
I watched both of you along the process.
No, you didn't. We had phone calls. We had text messages. You included Stormy. Stormy didn't respond to one.
Not one. Not one.
Not a one. And one of the things I was thinking that we may do that we hadn't talked about, Darren, is maybe to create a Facebook group so that those individuals who are launching, and you were talking about exchanging followers and things like that, we can help to launch these other podcasts that go through the academy with us. So that will help you guys to get started, give you some input, kind of see what you're doing, and then you're not just talking alone or launching alone. We can be a part of that process as well.
Yeah, so join us, get the recordings. If you can't be there live, you can jump in virtually and be a part of it. Either way, even if you come live, you're going to get the recordings as well as a bonus. But if you use that code, you can get half off VIP, live seat, or virtual seat. Love to have you join us.
Let me put this in there because, and I mentioned this to you recently, and you didn't know that I thought this about you. That you actually have one of the best virtual programs that I've ever seen. Because you really get the people who are virtual, they're just as involved. So for people who can't, of course, if you're there, that's always the best option. But if you cannot be there, you're not ignored. You're a part of it. Your questions are answered. Everything, just like we did on this webinar, you're fully engaged.
Yeah, we actually see you and hear you in the room, which is really cool. So you literally, not like online where you're typing in answers and everything, you're literally talking to us, we're talking to you. Everyone who's in the room live sees you, so you can't nod off. We're watching you. All right, so let's wrap this up. Stormy, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. It's always great when, whenever I can get I don't know if I want to use the word cheat codes, but there's been many scenarios to where I was able to learn from someone else that has gone through it, and it just expedited my process. And I was grateful because of it. So whenever I have the ability of giving that back, those same types of experiences, because those are some of the experiences that I treasure the most. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I'm excited to share with the group the do's and don'ts of what we learned. So this way you can get your podcast launched as quickly as possible
And right.
Absolutely.
yes.
Quickly and right. And, it'd be kind of awesome if the next great big podcast star comes from this training event.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Deborah.
So, and I will kind of sound off of Stormy. We're certainly looking forward to seeing you there. And in the beginning, one of the things that I mentioned was that I started it, my business, Stormy's business. It was kind of a hobby on the side. What I did not mention is now I'm a full-time podcaster. So that's one of the things that I do in helping other individuals. So we're giving you everything that we have right now, from Stormy's expertise with the personas, from mine as far as building and creating that podcast, and Darren's from the speaker and the podcast position, because he was the perfect student. I have to say that. So, we are there to give you everything that we have to make sure that, one, you don't fall into the same pitfalls that we fell into, Stormy and I, and two, that you launch in the right way and you create a sustainable foundation for growth. We hope to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that. And
Yes.
it's been fun working with you. I don't know what it's like to work with Stormy, but anyway,
He doesn't work.
please join us. Check out the website. Get more details on the website. We got those statistics we mentioned earlier. I'm also going to try and get this up on YouTube and get this out to people who watch this. So if you want to go back and go over it, you can. So again, yourbrandyourpodcast.com, live event in Las Vegas, the 12th and 13th, not the 13th and 13th, 9 to 5. And then on the evening of the first day is when we're going to record the podcast with our VIPs.
Right.
And we'll decide as we get closer whether it's here in Stormy Studios or if we're going to do it at the event. But either way, the whole class is going to be a part of that so they can see it, hear it, and experience it. We try to make it an experience.
Well, we're like
Absolutely.
2 weeks away.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
So thanks again for joining us. Check out the website for more details. Tell your friends too. Please, if you know anybody interested in having a podcast, we've been through the process and we've documented it to try and make it simpler, easier to get a quality podcast up and going to build your brand with your own podcast. We'll see you in Vegas, live or virtual. Thanks for being on.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. We'll see
Bye-bye.
you soon. Bye-bye.